Hello everyone, my name is Eden, this is Tallulah, and today we're going to be talking about how to give your pigeon or dove a bath. Baths play an important role in preening, which is what Tallulah is doing right now. Having a bath stimulates birds to preen more. It also helps keep their feathers clean and loosens up the dirt or anything that might have gotten on them to make it easier for them to clean it off. In molting, which is the bird version of shedding, where they lose all their feathers and grow in new ones, which usually happens about twice a year-ish, when a bird is molting, they tend to have really irritated skin that can get kind of dry and itchy, and having a bath really helps soothe that. It can also help soften and loosen the pin feathers that are ready to be opened, making it easier for them to preen in that regard as well. So for overall cleanliness, preening, and molting, baths are really important, but they also play a vital role in helping to manage dust, especially in a dust breed like Tallulah. Pigeons and doves, along with some other birds like cockatoos and African greys and cockatiels, are all dust birds where they have something called powder down, which is a special kind of feather that crumbles away into very fine dust that will cause a lot of problems for both your lung health and their lung health if it's not managed, especially being in enclosed spaces like a house. And one of the best tools for helping maintain clean air is to have the bird take a regular bath. When they bathe, the dust gets rinsed off their body and contained in the water, preventing it from ever poofing up into the air. And the more regularly they bathe, the less dusty they are. If it's possible for you to give your bird access to a bath every single day, that is ideal. If you have a large aviary or a really big cage, or they have their own room, or they're out all the time, having a bath just set up so they can go and do it whenever they want is perfect. If that's not an option, offering it every day would be ideal, but at least once a week should be your goal. The last thing to note about pigeons and doves having baths is that they also typically really enjoy it. It's super fun. They get so excited when they get to have their bath. It's adorable. They also look really hilarious when they're having a bath, so it's a good little show for you too. Now today I'm going to show you how I set up her bath, dishes that you can use, and we're going to offer it to Tallulah. Being that she's her own little person, I don't know if she'll actually want one, so we're just going to have to hope. If she doesn't, I'll just show you clips from other times she's had baths. Another benefit of bathing regularly, especially with pigeons and doves, is that since they spend so much time walking around on the floor of their cage and your house, their feet have a tendency to get really dirty. So does their belly and their wings from all the lounging around that they do. And having a bath helps keep their feet and their wings all clean, which for birds that enjoy the floor so much is really important. Woo! Good job! You can I don't know if you can see it, but there's a bunch of dust floating in the air right now from her shake. There are a few ways that you can offer your pigeon and dove to have a bath. Some may enjoy climbing into the sink while it's turned on and just playing in the small stream of water. What are you looking at? I don't see anything. Some may enjoy being able to climb into a sink and bathe in a small stream of water if you just have it on low, a low trickle of lukewarm water. Some may want to have a shower and climb in and splash around in the rain. If you have aviaries that are exposed to the elements, they may choose to try and have a bath in the rain. You can also potentially let them have a bath by misting them with a spray bottle. This is something that's not typically enjoyed by pigeons as much. Other species of birds often really enjoy spray bottles. It's not as common with pigeons, but you can try that if you're having a hard time figuring out how they like to bathe. In that regard, it's important to note that while bathing is a natural activity for a pigeon and dove to do, they do it in the wild, and they're kind of hardwired to want to do it, it's still not something that's guaranteed to come naturally to your bird. If you have a bird that is a rescue feral, it's much more likely that they'll know how to bathe, or if they're a rescue that had a really good home before, they may also have had access to a bath, but it's not uncommon for birds that came from less than ideal homes to not have ever seen a water big enough for them to bathe in and to not know how to do it. That was the case with Tallulah. When I first got her, she had no idea what to do with baths. She refused to do it. It took me months of experimenting and offering her different kinds of baths before she bathed for the first time. And that's not uncommon. I know some people whose birds have taken weeks, months, or years to figure out how to bathe. Are you gonna lay down? Yeah? Oh, that looks so cozy. Good job. Good job. Yeah. That looks like a cozy spot. If you have a bird that doesn't just automatically bathe as soon as they're presented with the opportunity, it might take a little bit of effort. But that does not mean that it's impossible to teach them how. When it came to Tallulah, I tried offering her baths in every form I could possibly think of. Spray bottles, she found those scary at first. Different kinds of dishes in the different locations. I tried putting the dish on the kitchen floor, on the kitchen table, in my bedroom, on the floor, just all over, just trying to figure out if it was the location that would help. I tried playing in the water with her to try and encourage her to come and check it out. Eventually I decided to see if seeing something else bathe would help her figure out what it is I'm trying to encourage her to do. So I ended up taking her bath and putting it just outside the door of the shower when I went and had a shower. I just left the shower door open, and that was the first time she ever bathed. I'd had her for 4 or 5 months at that point. She came over, stood, watched me splash around the water, and you could see it click, and she came over, jumped in the bath, and had a bath for the first time since I got her. Now, that was super exciting that she actually had a bath, because at that point I was starting to wonder if she was ever going to bathe. But obviously having her only bathe while I'm in the shower, leaving the door open, getting the bathroom wet is far from ideal. So I've started just sort of like weaning her off of needing me to be involved in that. So every time she had a bath, I would just move the bath a little bit farther away. Eventually she was having a bath while her tub was in the middle of the bathroom. Eventually it was near the door of the bathroom. Eventually I decided to try and completely remove the whole bathroom shower thing entirely and just put her and her bath on the table. She sat there completely confused, just staring at the bath, not bathing for almost an hour, and eventually I was just like, okay, I wonder if she still needs me being involved in some way. So I went and I washed the dishes, which is me handling water, and she immediately went over and started bathing. So I continued to do that, where I would be washing dishes while she had her bath in the kitchen. That way I was still doing water stuff while she was doing water stuff, and that worked well for a while. Eventually just started turning off the water earlier and earlier and earlier, and eventually she didn't need me to do anything with the water at all, and she would happily have a bath. And then I taught her to do it in more convenient locations, because once again, kitchen table is not ideal. We're going to be doing that today, but that's because the lighting is good in this house. Here, this is where the best lighting is, so we're going to do it for that reason. So if you try offering your bird a bath, as we're going to do in just a moment, and they refuse to, and they've never had a bath before, just experiment with tweaking the temperature of the water, tweaking the location, changing what they're in, where they're doing it, what you're doing when they do it, and just see how, eventually you'll figure out something that will work. And it might be like Tallulah and take a really long time and a lot of weird experimenting, and then weaning her into something more convenient, or they might just click and then be good to go after that. But if they're having a hard time, experimenting is likely the way to go. So without further ado, let's give Tallulah a bath. The first thing that you're going to need when you're giving your bird a bath is the bathtub. I highly recommend going for a casserole dish, but any kind of large, flat, shallow dish will work great. Go for something heavy, that way when they climb on the edge, they don't tip the whole thing over. Having it be shallow is extremely important. If it's too deep, they might not be able to get out and drown. Even if they're able to get in with no problem, remember that their wings are going to get wet once they've had that bath and prevent them from being able to fly out. So being shallow is a necessity. You're going to want to use the same kind of water for the bath as you do for the drinking water. For example, if the water that you give them to drink is bottled water because the tap water in your area is not safe for them, you're going to want to use that for their bath as well, because they will ingest a large amount of their bath water. Some people, including myself, will sometimes add things like aloe vera or apple cider vinegar to their bird's bath, but because why you may or may not want to do that is a larger topic, we're going to just stick with talking about plain water. Tallulah in particular usually wants me to either dump water over her or spray her with the spray bottle as she's bathing. You can see here that I'm slowly pouring water across her back, which she really likes. I'd also like you to notice that when I pour the water over her back, it doesn't soak in. You can see each drop is sitting on top of her water. Her feathers are completely water resistant. This is a really good sign. It means her feathers are healthy and that she's preening properly. If you have a recently rescued bird, you'll notice that they'll probably have little to no waterproofing. Tallulah was that way for quite a while. The first few times she had a bath, she would become immediately drenched the second water touched her. Whereas now it takes quite a bit of effort to have the water get her feathers wet. After I poured some water over her back for a little bit, I switched to putting on the lid of the spray bottle. Usually at this point when she's in her bath, she switches to wanting me to spray to help her get the water up and in her feathers, especially on her back, under her wings. But you can see here that when I start spritzing the water, I always start by either pouring or spraying the bath water, not her. That way she can see that it's coming and be prepared. She decides to leave. It seems today she wants a particularly short bath. Because she decided to end it early, I'll just tell you, usually when she switches to wanting the spray bottle, she will lean over when I start spraying and raise up one of her wings so that I can spray her armpit or her wing pit. Once your bird has done their bath, it's time to dry off. If you remember at the beginning of this video, I mentioned that after their bath, they're going to be wet and they're going to have a hard time flying. That waterlogged state is also going to make them much more clumsy. So if you're carrying your bird around or putting them anywhere afterward, keep in mind that they're much more likely to fall. Granted, Tallulah is a particularly bad case of that because their balance is a little less than awesome, even on a good day. Once they're done with their baths, it's just a matter of drying off. If you happen to have a bird who enjoys being wrapped in a towel, this is the perfect time for that. I don't recommend keeping the towel too long though, just long enough to help sop up a little bit of extra water to help them dry faster. So usually when she's done her baths, I'll use a towel to get most of the water off her, and then I'll set her up somewhere warm. But you want to take them out and let them walk around. That way they can preen, fluff, shake, and work on their feathers as they're drying. Something to keep in mind once your bird is out of the bath, if you're going to be handling them, is that in addition to being wet and having that make them more clumsy, they're also going to have their feathers be a bit stickier. Wet feathers stick to human skin really easily, so you have to be really careful if you're at all touching their body because they might stick, and if you shift your hand the wrong way and have any pressure there, you could easily accidentally rip a feather out. It is likely that would only happen with a feather that's just about to be molted, but because it is a potential to accidentally rip out feathers that should not be going anywhere, I recommend either avoiding handling them like hands-on like that when they're wet still, and just doing step up, like have them stand on you, walk around. Like the only exception would maybe be just like resting a hand on them while you're walking if they're particularly like wobbly and potentially gonna fall over. And even if you don't rip out any feathers, it's just likely to be more uncomfortable for them because their feathers are gonna be sticking to your hands. Now it's quite likely that after your bird's done having their bath, their poop is going to change pretty drastically. This happens with Tallulah as well as most people with pigeons that I know that I talk to about post-bath poops. I just want to mention it, that way you don't freak out and think there's something horribly wrong with your bird. Heads up, I am going to show you some poo to demonstrate what I'm talking about. If you don't like seeing poo, I recommend looking away for a moment. Granted, I doubt anyone watching this video would, because if you're interested in birds, you probably are going to be expecting to have to deal with lots of poop. You can see here an example of a poop that Tallulah did right before she had her bath. Now, it's not the perfect example because it's no longer the neat and tidy snail shell shape with the little white top anymore because she walked across it, but you can still see that it has a consistent color and nice firm shape. Compared that to this clip of one that she just did right now, you can still see that the fecal matter has its normal firm shape and same color, only it was deposited in a very large puddle of just straight up water. Because of how much water they consume while in their bath, it's pretty common for them to do this for a little while after they're done. But within a little while, it should return to normal. Something to keep in mind when your bird is drying is that I do not recommend you use a hair blow dryer to help your bird dry off. Lots of hair dryers have Teflon as part of their mechanisms and would then be essentially blowing Teflon-filled fumes at their face. And seeing as Teflon is one of the most well-known airborne toxins that can kill birds, I'm sure you can tell why that would be very bad. So unless you know for sure that the brand that you have does not have any Teflon or similarly toxic substances built into it, I do not recommend using a hair blow dryer to blow them off. So long as they're in a warm room, or if they're a particularly hardy bird, even without that, they should be fine to just preen and air dry. I hope you found this video helpful. If there's any questions you have about bathing birds, leave those in the comments below. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.